Barbara Cochran says the listings are the lifeblood of the real estate industry. Does anybody know why they consider listings the lifeblood of the real estate industry?
It fuels your business.
How?
It keeps the market churning.
That's right. Anybody else?
Girl.
Besides the fact that it's our product and it's that's what we're here to sell. So we need houses to sell.
Yep. They say that people or agents that have listings are usually the highest earned in the industry. Does that make sense? I mean, listings create so many opportunities, right? Oops, sorry. Can you guys see my screen still?
Yes.
Give me 1 second. There we go. So they say that real estate agents that list they have revenue generation, they have visibility and reputation. Listings are able to give them client acquisition, market expertise, and networking opportunities. Overall, listings are essential for real estate professionals because they drive revenue, establish credibility, and attract clients, deepen the market expertise, and facilitate professional networking. They form the foundation of the successful real estate business and are crucial for long-term growth and sustainability. So for the interest of time, we are going to focus on three main parts of the listing appointment, so to speak. We have preparing for the listing appointment. We have the listing and the presentation. And then we have the setting expectations and the next steps. So you got the listing appointment. You just got off the phone and you booked the listing appointment. What do you do next? Do you celebrate? You just sit there and are so happy that you finally got it? Then what? For me, it means preparing for the listing appointment. And the preparation for the listing appointment could take hours. For me, it takes a couple of hours. It's probably longer than the listing presentation itself. According to a survey conducted by Inman, 70% of home sellers prefer working with an agent who demonstrates a high level of professionalism and expertise. And what you guys consider professionalism, I mean, that varies from person to person. For me, what it means is, again, being super prepared. When I get off the phone with that potential client, the first thing I do is send them a calendar invite. And I try to make it fun. I put a little house on there. They're going to get this on their calendar too. I include anybody that's important to the business decision. So if they're married, their wife is going to be on there too. And make sure that you put the time and the date, obviously, so that they are able to accept, or if they have a conflict, they can decline it. Then the next step is the pre-listing packet. And there's three ways to kind of get this out there. You have the old school way that I call the old school way, which is printing. I kind of got away from that years ago because it was a pain in the butt. I used to have to drive to the seller's house and try to drop off the packet for them before the listing appointment. And that time I could be used with me preparing for the listing appointment. So I stopped doing the printing one. The other option would be to FedEx it over, and that's expensive. And just not the best use of time or money, in my opinion. The next thing that you could do is a digital version. And we do have a digital version of this now that we use. We put it on a system called Flipblue, which basically makes it like an electronic magazine, so to speak. But I found that most people don't really have the time to like dive into this before the appointment. So what I started doing is an email. Sorry, went ahead too many. And in the email, I used the Story brand. I don't know if you guys ever heard of the Story brand. How to tell a story with a Story brand. So you basically have to figure out what the problem is and then try to fix it, and that's how you attract clients. So like my email talks a little bit about me. It tells them about like our mission, who we are. We have a set time here that we talk about, when our appointment is set for. We talk about the problem, selling is a big step, and it's in a very competitive market, and kind of threw in there some of the goals that they want. And then instead of attaching a pre-listing packet now, I'm attaching like a little informational, so like an item of value. And we made this brochure, it's called Mistakes Were Made. Basically, I took parts of my pre-listing packet and I just put it in there. And I can show you later, but it basically talks about what not to do when you're thinking about selling your house. So it's really short, it's only like 5 pages long. And then because I'm not sending the big listing packet, I'm just including a video of something that we've done. In the very, like in years past, I used to put a video of just kind of us, our team, what we stand for, just kind of like a get to know you video. Now I include like whatever the latest market update that I've recorded. So I'm multi-using this video. I put it on YouTube. I've used it for social media. And then I also use it for this email so that they can kind of understand that I know what, the market is like. I know what we're doing, and kind of give them some information so that they're getting some value out of this as well. All of these packets, which, let me see if the link works. Nope. When you go into it and you read it, you actually, there's clickable items that go back to our website, back to our YouTube page. So it's kind of creating a consistency for them to kind of come back to us when they have questions about real estate. Guys, my screen is basically the presentation. So if you have any questions or want to say anything, just feel free to say it, because I can't see if anybody's like raising their hand or they're saying something, just so you guys know. So the next part of the preparation. So this is the first thing that goes out after the Google Calendar. The next thing about my preparation is a very extensive market analysis. And there's different ways that the people do these. You could do like a quick one in RPR. You could, do it off the MLS. I like doing it this way because, and just so you know, this is an auto. If you guys ever heard of the auto class, this is basically the template that he uses. With that class, they give you a guide as to like in a certain price point, and you have a pool, how much that adds to the house, so that what my goal here is to get as close as possible to an appraisal, so that when I'm presenting this to the seller, they could have some feedback as to, this is what an appraisal will likely look at. The appraiser might be looking at different different properties that we don't know which comparables they're going to use, but this is kind of the process that they're going to go through. So it's going to be very close to whatever number this comes up with. And I always try to be as knowledgeable as possible about their home, although I haven't seen it. So on the phone before we book the appointment, I'm asking them, have you done any upgrades to your house in the last 5 years? What have you done to it? Is there anything, why would I want your house? Why would a buyer want your house as opposed to your neighbor's house? So I could kind of get an idea of what those special items in their houses. Is your basement finished? Do you have a basement? Is your, I look up their gross living area and their tax records, and I ask them if that's accurate, if they've done any additions. All of these things that, how many garages they have, any fireplaces, have they done anything to their backyard? All those things add value. So I want to know those things up front so that I can get as close as possible to their evaluation before I even get to meet them. And, what our job is to help the seller understand and interpret the market data to determine the property's home value. Sellers ultimately determine pricing. So one of the goals here when I'm preparing this and presenting the CMA is that I want to show them that I know the market inside and out. I'm hyper local to their market. I bring copies of or links to the properties that I'm using as their comparables so that they can see inside and out what the house looks like. Let's see. This is what I usually bring with me. Can you guys see that still? Or are you still looking at the presentation?
We can still see it.
Are you seeing the properties or are you seeing the presentation?
Seeing the properties.
Properties.
Okay, great. So I usually bring this with me so that they can see, what the houses that I'm comparing their homes to. And I ask them, do you feel like this house is a good comparable to your home? In our market, there's not a lot of inventory, as we know. So we know that there's not a lot of comparables. Sometimes you have to go a little bit out of the area. As a rule of thumb, I try to stay within 1 mile from the property. And I try to use, if the property that I'm looking at is a Cape Cod, I try to use Cape Cod for the rest of my comparables if I can. What I found is that most buyers are looking for a specific type of home. Some buyers will not look at ranches. Some buyers are only looking at ranchers. So if you're gonna do a price comparison for a ranch and you're looking at a colonial, those two properties are not comparable in my opinion. So I usually just try to get as close as possible to that property itself so that the seller could feel like this is a good representation of my home and what a buyer today will likely pay for my home. Any questions so far?
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You said you used the auto class. Can you spell that?
Say that one more time.
Hold on 1 second. Let me switch my AirPod.
Yes, if you could spell the auto group.
What the auto plan, I'm sorry?
She was asking if you could spell auto for her. I think it's O-T-T.
Oh, auto,
The appraisal.
Yeah, it's OTTO.
OTTEU, actually. OTTEU.
Okay, thank you. Got it.
Any other questions?
When you pulled up the properties, did you already create a portal for them to show that?
Honestly speaking, I never create portals. What I do is that I go and do my comparables or pick out the properties.
Yeah.
And then where you could narrow them down to the 3, and then you click on Bright where you click email.
Yeah.
Before I email it, there's a little link at the bottom that says preview, and that's what I use.
Oh, okay.
So I never even create a portal. I don't go through all of that.
Gotcha, thanks.
nonsense. Yeah.
That's great.
So I usually just copy that link and put it into my CMA so that when I'm with them, I can just click the button and we go directly to look at the properties. Like these are the properties that I use for your comparable. You know, these homes are within a mile. You know, you can see here how close they are to your home. Do you feel like these homes are a good representation of your property? Yes or no?
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel like this house? You know, these are good questions to ask them while you're with them. I mean, right now we're talking about preparing for it. So like I pretend like I'm with them so I can, you know, think of what questions they're gonna ask me so I can be prepared for those. For me, the name of the game is preparation.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, any other questions on that, CMAs? No? Alrighty. The next part is being super knowledgeable about what's going on in their community. So what are the common issues that are happening in the neighborhood? For example, if I'm listing a house in Jackson, I've sold a few houses in this particular neighborhood that all the homes were built like in the early 2000s. And every single time that any of those houses sell, the septic fails. And it fails because there's been updates to the regulations that's happened since then. And sometimes it's like a very small fix that they have to do, but just being able to like know that information is super important. And I'll tell you one in a little bit. So anything that's issues like that, any township or CO issues that you know of, for example, Jackson again, takes forever to like give you a CO. If you have a seller in Jackson that finished the basement and they never got a permit for it, buckle up, tell them to start doing that now because it's going to take like 3 or 4 months. They're super slow and they inspect every single thing. So just having that information available, knowing that just shows the seller how knowledgeable you are. Any appraisal or mortgage issues that you know that's happened, like our house is not appraising in that area, our house is selling for underneath their list price because of appraisal issues. Do all the research you can to know that information like it was your neighborhood. Like you want to know what's going on there. You want to know what's going on in the local schools. You want to know the gossip. And
Do you happen to know anything that's going on in Lawrenceville right now?
what specifically or where in Lawrenceville?
South of the bypass and east of Ryder, south of Ryder. Actually, I guess it's a little southwest. It's just east of PCNJ.
I don't know offhand, but I'm going to tell you guys a little secret. You guys probably know this already, but I'm not from New Jersey. I grew up in Massachusetts. I moved here about 11 years ago. I honestly know nothing about nowhere. but before but before I go to an appointment, you would never guess that. I know the tea.
That's great.
That's crazy.
So it's all about, you know, trying to get as much information as possible before you're there. So you could look, honestly speaking, I never grew up, you know, I never came to New Jersey before I moved here 11 years ago. And to sell like in the large, like before I sold the property on the shore, I never even went to the shore. But those sellers probably never knew that. So preparation is the name of the game, guys.
How did you get your information?
I Google, I look at news, I talk to people in the area, I call the township if I need to call them to see if there's any issues. That's why one of the things too, guys, when you're making your listing appointment, never make it for the same day. Like preparing for the listing appointment takes a good 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours. Set aside that time block. So if I talk to someone, they're like, can you come this afternoon? No, I actually already have an appointment this afternoon. How about tomorrow in the afternoon? I try to give myself at least a day in between to really prepare. And every time I've taken a same day listing because they're leaving out of town or they gave me a sob story, I regret it every single time. And it's not always because of not being prepared. If I know the area pretty well, sometimes I think I could swing it. The problem is that what I found is that those sellers that push you to do a same day listing don't respect your time. And when you go there and you can be as prepared as you want to be, they're not, all they want to know, they just want information. They just want to know what their house is worth, and they're not going to use you. So why waste your time on people like that? Any other questions on that?
Nope.
All right. So the next thing that I put into my packet is pricing strategies. Every single time that we have a pricing conversation with a seller, they're gonna either ask you what you think, or they're going to argue with you because they want to list it at whatever number they have in their heads. And one of the things I like to show them is that, we have the market value. If you price the home at market value, the percentage of potential buyers who will look at the property is 60%. If you go 10% below market value, 75%, and 15% under market value, 90%. If you go above market value, you're reducing the amount of people that are going to come see your home. And in this market, guys, let's be honest, sellers are pretty much getting whatever they want, right? I still like being super prepared because they're going to have an appraisal. Unless somebody waives the appraisal, they're probably going to have an appraisal. So I want to know what the house is going to be worth. So if a seller tells me, you know what, I see that the house is worth $750 based on your analysis, but I think I could get $775. I want to start at $775. What do you guys say to that? Anybody want to share what their experience has been?
Oh, I think I should get at least 800.
What do you say to that? What is your response?
Well, in this market, you're going to get a lot more people to visit the house if you set the price just a little bit lower.
Any other scripts? What else what do people say? What is your objection handler with that?
How come you think it's worth 25,000 more versus other homes similar to yours?
Yeah, why? Oh, because my house has a beautiful backyard. I just spent $100,000 on that grass. Look how green it is.
And it's that much bigger than the other houses you showed me.
Yeah.
Maybe it isn't.
Next door, the house next door is 0.90 acres, and I have 0.91. It's totally worth $25,000 more.
Yeah.
We've all heard it. So what I found is that I find that sellers are super sensitive to their homes, as they should be. They put a lot of time and effort and money into their homes, and it's like their baby. Nobody wants to hear that their baby is ugly, right?
Right.
So what I tell them is, you're right. Your house, you've spent all this money making this house beautiful, and the right buyer is gonna see that value when they walk in. But what we really want to do is get as many people in here as possible so that you can have the control to make sure that you're going to select the best price and the best terms for you so you can meet your goals. If they still give me pushback, by listing it at this number, that's your best bet. That's our proven strategy, and that's what gets you X amount over list price, which will get you, whatever X amount is. It's just pretty close to what you want. Would that work? If they say no, honestly speaking, I'm going to be really real with you guys. In this market, I tell them, you know what? Let's go ahead and list it for 800. We'll give it 1 week. In this market, if you don't get at least 7 showings on the first week, you're overpriced. We have to come down. Is that fair? Let's list it. I'll do all my marketing. I'll put it at 800,000. We'll do an open house. We do all the things that we do. if by the first week you don't get at least 7 showings, we gotta come down. Do you agree? Most of the time, 9 times out of 10, the seller says, yeah, sure, let's do it. Because they're confident they could get 800,000, right?
Right.
So let's do that. One of the things too that to emphasize to to sellers is that buyers determine what your real estate, what the price is. The buyers are the ones that decide what the value of the property is, what they're willing to pay for it in today's market when they compare it to other homes. It could be that a buyer wants in that neighborhood for whatever reason, and they'll pay you whatever you want. That could happen, but it's not something that happens every single day. You know, value has nothing to do with how much you paid for the house, has nothing to do with what you think you need, what you want, what your neighbor said, what another agent said, or what your insurance agent says the cost to rebuild the home is today. None of those things matter. The only thing that matters is what other homes that are similar to yours selling for, and how does your home compare to that one. Just making sure that you have that that script, basically, that you know that inside and out, because you're going to have a lot of conversations on pricing. The last thing that I do, or one of the last things that I do in my listing presentation, again, here we're talking about how I'm preparing my listing presentation for the seller. We're not even in front of the seller yet. I do a proposal. So based on the CMA that we did, here's what I suggest that you list your house at. Here's the estimated sales price, and I get this by, you go back to the CMA, you looking at what properties have sold for in the area. They're selling for 95% of their list price, or they're selling for 105%. What is the average? I prepare the scale based on that. The average days on market, you know, what the commission is. And I tell them, you know, you could expect to spend about 1% on your other selling costs, like your attorney and taxes and things like that. Sometimes if when I'm talking to them on the phone and they tell me what their payoff is, I will also prepare a seller net sheet through Bright, and I'll include that in here so it's customized to them. And then lastly, I do like a mock timeline. Like, if everything else sounds good, this is when we'll start rocking and rolling with things. I used to present this presentation on my iPad. Now I've been printing it out and bringing it with me so I can leave it with them. And if we have to make changes, I could just like change things with a pen so that I could send them an updated one when I get back to the office. Any questions on that?
I'm sorry,
Nope.
Louisa, I've got 6 things going on. When you said you want to get, what do you need from the seller when you leave? The listing appointment? Or maybe what you were saying is that you wanted to tell them they were going to have the lawyer's costs and
Yeah, so this is like the proposal that I prepare before I go meet with them. This is included in their listing packet in a listing presentation when I go when I go to the listing appointment. So I basically have what I suggest their price to be, what they could expect their sales price to be, what the commission we agreed on, and what I just say 1% of their sales price is usually what their extra costs are going to be, like their attorney costs, their transfer taxes costs. All of those things amount to be about 1% of their sales price.
okay. I'm going to try to do a screenshot of that. Do you have your slides available? Are you willing to share them?
Sure. All right, so any other questions on that? So how prepared do you feel now? Like, that's all the preparation you're doing before your appointment. Is that different from what you guys are doing currently? So the day of the appointment, I send them a text message, just telling them, reminding them of our appointment time and just seeing if that still works for them. I always confirm the appointment the day of, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. Now, during your appointment, first thing you want to do is be on time, guys. What does that mean?
Early.
How early?
5 minutes.
At least 5 minutes. That's right. You want to show, it goes right back to your preparation, and it goes back to your professionalism. You're taking their listing seriously. This is a serious meeting that you're having with the potential seller of your new listing. This is a business meeting. So be prepared when you go to it, be on time. And, this goes without saying, dress appropriately. What does that mean? You always want to dress like one up from the clients that you're meeting, is what I've always heard. So if you're meeting like a luxury client, you want to, make sure that you're wearing clothes that are appropriate to that. Always, my rule of thumb is always, be modest, not too much skin showing. You don't want to offend anyone. And we don't know these people very well, so we don't know what their, gauge is and what is offensive and what is not. Now, let's talk about what happens when you're actually touring the home. So here are some tips that I do when I'm touring the home with the seller. I use this time to build rapport. I'm asking them questions about themselves. I'm using keys, throughout the home. If I see a diploma, I'm asking them, oh, who went to school here? Oh, what did you major in? And try to get more information on those kind of things. Pictures, oh, those are beautiful. That's a beautiful family. Always remember to compliment. They say compliment to convert. So use cues around the house to compliment the seller and make them feel like, make them like you. Basically, that's what you're trying to do, right? If it's a job interview, you're trying to make them like you. So I'm not saying lie. I've been to homes where it's hard to find something to be like, oh yeah, this is great. Sometimes you're like, oh my God, how are we walking from this room to the other room? But you could always find something, right? Like, oh, those are huge windows. What structurally can you find in the house that are good features? The other thing, as you're walking through the home, I always take notes of potential issues that I find. So I'm walking through the home and I'm looking at their bedrooms. I'm looking at the size of the bedroom, but I'm always looking at the ceiling. Is there any like water stains? Is there any cracks? Are there anything that's going to maybe create an issue later for us? I want to make note of that because I want to, make my client aware of that so that they can prepare their house accordingly. And lastly, try to get information about why they're moving, right? You probably already had a conversation about how they're having a job change. Try to get more information about that. Like, when does it start? How excited are you about this job? Is it something you wanted to do? Just try to get as much information as possible because you're going to use that later in order to get them to sign with you. And
Luisa, I have a question.
Go for it.
As you're walking through the home and talking to the seller, would it be appropriate to ask them what intrigued them about buying this property in the first place? Like, i.e., was there a walking path or a pool or a really nice kitchen or a 3-car garage that was heated or something like that? Like, was there something that may attract the next buyer?
This is a good time to ask that. Sometimes I ask that question after I get the listing. I ask them, what's your favorite part of this home? Why did you buy this home? Because then I use that into my listing description.
Perfect, thanks.
So one other thing that I do when I'm walking around the house, remember all that research we did about the local tea, so to speak, all the local gossip? This is where I sprinkle that. So, oh yeah, look, oh, I see that you guys have a basement that you finished it. Do you ever get permits for that? Oh, just so you know, between us, the township here takes forever to get those permits on. So like, you might want to get that started before we even go on the market, just to get ahead, ahead of the game. And that shows that you know what you're talking about, you know the market, you are in with the local information. And a lot of times, one of the biggest objections that I haven't gotten past is when I go to an area that I'm not very familiar with, even if I do all the research and the seller says that they want to use a local agent. Why do you think that people usually want to use a local agent?
Because they know everything about what's going on in the community.
Exactly. So if you come in knowing all the tea, then they can use that against you, right? Oh, I don't Bob at the CEO office. Oh, I'll call him and let him know that you're going to start, the process so we can get that expedited. All these little things that you might not think about is planting little seeds into the seller's brain, and you want them to feel like there's absolutely no other choice than to hire you to sell their house. Any other questions? All right, guys, we've toured the house. You've complimented the heck out of them. You've got a good idea as to why they're selling. And you sprinkled in information there to let them know that you're the right person for it. What comes next? Now it's time to sit around the kitchen table, so to speak. Why does it always happen in the kitchen table? You guys ever asked that? Have you guys noticed that most listing appointments happen around the kitchen table?
It's the most comfortable room in the house.
Right. So now it's time for you to show up. It's time for the presentation itself. Now you could do this, like I said, you could use a tablet, you could use, I used to use it with a tablet. People were very impressed with that. Now I'm using a paper form, and people still seem to like that. What I find is people really like information, and they like to know that you are giving them all the information that they need. So the first rule of the listing presentation is to take control. You are the professional that they called to get this property on the market. They might have called the other ones, so you're trying to beat them. So you're trying to show them you mean business. So you're taking control of that meeting. Don't let the sellers control it. And I usually like to start off with gratitude. So I tell them, thank you so much for inviting me here today, or having me in your home, in your lovely home today. I know there's a lot of agents out there that you could have called, and I really appreciate you calling me. And then I want to kind of get the business, the meeting in order by telling them, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we have 3 goals for our appointment today. 1, we're going to review your motivation to sell the house. We're also going to help you agree on a price that will cause you to sell the house. We're going to share a unique value proposition as well as our marketing strategy. And we're going to decide today whether we choose to work with each other to list your home. Fair enough?
Yep.
Do you have a chance to take a look at the email I sent you yesterday, just to see what they took out of that? And then I know what to focus on when I do my presentation. So we talked to them about what their motivation is when we were walking through the house. So this is the time where you would reiterate that. All right, so I know that you're trying to get to Arizona to be with your family. You're really excited about that. I'm excited for you. In an ideal world, what does this timeline look like? And they'll tell you, I would like to be there in 2 months. Okay, 2 months, great. So there's a script that we have for this that I could send to you guys as well, or if we have time, we could go over it. But basically, we go through their motivation and making sure that we're repeating their motivation to them. So we're getting them excited. They can see that we're excited about their their goals, and we're going to do whatever we can to get them to achieve those.
Luisa, I'm sorry,
next-
can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
I noticed on your, the, the agenda that you had for the meeting, that you had 27 days to time on market. Is that what you're finding the average sale price to be these days? Sale time?
That changes with every single CMA, right? We're doing hyper local information. So what I do is that when we do the CMA, let me see if I can go back to that slide. Give me 1 second, guys.
Days on market, yeah.
So we're
Okay.
going back to when we do the CMA and we, hold on 1 second, let me just show you real quick. Okay, when I'm doing my CMA, I'm putting in here the days on market. I'm getting that from the MLS.
Okay,
So what I do is that I take the average of these, and that's how I come up with their time on market for their
Brilliant.
neighborhood.
okay. And is
Change that
that,
for every single house.
okay. No, and that's not necessarily the same time that you recommend that they contract with you. You put 6 months of the contract or,
So you could do different things there. Usually I do like 3 to 4 months, depending on the market. If we're in a slower market, I do 6 months. In this market, I usually do like 4 months.
okay,
But yeah, that has nothing to do with how long they're working with me. It just says what that means is that from the moment you put it on the market to the time you get an offer that you accept, this is kind of the time that is happening with this is the average time in your neighborhood.
okay. All right, thanks very much. That's great.
Any other questions, guys? All right, so we talked to the seller about their motivation. Now we got to share what our unique value proposition. And guys, if you don't have this, if you don't know this for your individual business, I suggest that you do that exercise and just put some time aside to think of what it is that you are doing that's different from other people. What is your unique value proposition? So for example, here's like a really quick one, right? Professional pictures, professional house measurements. We have a 25 marketing system. Here, this all we do to list your property. This is what sets us aside. We because we're with Keller Williams, we're able to partner with them to be able to expand the amount of places that we could put your home. We list in over 500 places. When you list with us every week, we're going to give you a weekly seller report. This kind of tells you all of your feedback. It tells you how many views you're getting on the major websites, and it's going to tell you how many showings and what the feedback to those showings were. So then what I found is that at that time, and by the way, you haven't really gone over the CMA with them yet, right? You just went over their proposal. You went over those kinds of things, but you haven't actually gone in depth with the CMA yet. You're just telling them, here's what your problem is. Here's what I'll be able to do for you. And at this point, we have to go in with a soft close. Anybody have an idea what the soft close looks like?
I'd say, are you ready to sign? But that sounds like a hard close.
That's a hard close. And you could do that. It sounds pretty aggressive. Good for you. Anybody else have any ideas of how to do a soft close? Or they call this a trial close.
With everything we went over today, do you feel
Outside of
that
agreeing on the price that would cause your
I lost you, Louisa. What, you said outside of agreeing on the price, what?
Send that one in and out. Can you guys hear me now?
Okay, now I can.
Agreeing on the price that would cause your home to sell. Is there anything that would stop us from moving forward and working together today?
That sounds like a soft close.
So at this point, they're going to give you their objections. Well, I met with somebody else, I haven't decided. And you could practice a bunch of scripts on objection handling, which I suggest you do. But one of the things to keep in mind is that objections are just problems you need to solve, right? So, okay, what is it that makes you want to list with them instead of me? What are they offering you that I haven't offered you yet? Let's get to the root of the problem. Oh, they said that they're gonna accompany every buyer for every showing. Can you do that? Can you? I mean, that's an individual business decision, whether you say yes or no. For me, most of the time, I'm gonna say no because that's not realistic. If it's $1 million house, though, I would make it realistic. I will make it happen.
Yeah.
But in a day-to-day, you know, there's no way that you can be able to, you know,
Be
and some
there,
people do
yeah.
do that. You know, some people do that. But one of the things that I say to people that say, well, they said that they're able to do that. I'm like, then I'm going to tell you something. They're not selling a lot of houses. Because if they're able to drop what they're doing every single time somebody's going to come and show your house, they're either not marketing it appropriately, so not a lot of people are going to come see your house, or they have the time to do that. And I spend my time selling houses. So if I tell you I'm going to do that, I'm lying to you. And I prefer not to do that. I prefer to be honest with you from the very onset. If they say yes, you know, they're ready to work with you today, then that's when I go in depth with the CMA. And remember the preparation that we did where we put it side by side, we have the comparables, and we have that conversation like, do you guys feel like this house, you know, this house matches yours? Is it similar to yours? And then we go over what they want to list the house for. So the proposal is just your proposal. I suggest that we list it for $850. What are your thoughts? How do you guys feel about that? Because at the end of the day, sellers decide what they sell their house for. You know, we're there to guide them. We're there to tell them the information that they need. We're interpreting the market data for them, but they're going to be the ones that decide what they're willing to sell their house for. So once we walk through that and we agree on a price, right? That was the big, on the trial close, that was the trial, besides agreeing on the price. So we agreed on the price. The next thing that we want to do is go over expectations. So we want to make sure that we talk to them about what your process is. Do you have a process? You know, for us, for example, we start our listings on Thursdays. We do an open house that weekend, depending on the demand of that area. We'll do Saturday or Sunday or both. Mr. Seller, what we can expect by this is proven. We've done this many times, and this is what is proven. That by the end of that weekend, you're going to have multiple offers if you price it correctly, right? If you price it correctly, by the end of that weekend, you'll have multiple offers. If by the end of that weekend, we don't have more than 5, 7 showings, we're listed too high. If we're on the right track, and what I tell them is, and if we're listed too high, that's okay. We'll just readjust. We're going to look at this price. We're going to look at this information weekly. We're going to make sure that we're on top of the trends, because market trends change every day. And if we're priced too high, we'll switch it up. We'll lower the price. We'll do another open house. We'll try it again. If we price it correctly and we have multiple offers, by the end of the weekend, by the end of the open houses, We're gonna do highest and best by Tuesday at 5. Here's what you can expect from us. I'm gonna provide you a spreadsheet with all the different offers, so you can see them side by side. We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna decide not only which one has the best price, but which one has the best terms to get you to closing at the desired time and for the amount of money that you need. Once we have that completely, I always find that it's easier if I have something that tells me like what the next steps are. So like when I'm talking about this, then I'm like, all right, next steps. Let's sign the paperwork. And then go over that timeline that we talked about that we were preparing before we came here. All right, so if we get your house on the market by this date, that means that we will do the photo shoot this day and start the coming soon this day. Would that work for you? And all these times are, you know, we could change it up depending on how things go. If things happen and we have to switch it up, we can, but this will give us a baseline. Any questions, guys? Are you guys ready to go get the next listing?
I am, but I'd really like to see your slides. Just to review.
Yeah.
I-
Can you
I'd
email
actually-
me? Because I'm not looking at the chat. So if you could email or text me, I'll send it to you.
Absolutely. I just need your email.
Any other questions, guys? How are you guys feeling? Does anybody want the script, the listing consultation script?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll give it to Anne Marie so she could you guys contact her so she could get it to you.
Thank you.
Your email went by too quickly. Can I get that from Anne Marie too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anything else, guys? Anything we didn't go over that you have questions about?
That was terrific. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Hope you
thank
guys
you.
learned something. We could get some more listings in the office.
That's
Got my
right.
fingers crossed for one this afternoon.
Let's go get them, Pam.
All right.
Thanks,
I want
Luisa.
to hear all the listings you guys get.
Thank you.
Thank you, Luisa.
Thank you so
Talk to
much.
you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.